Hi everyone, welcome back Ash Academic. Today's video we will discuss AWS S3 vectors. AWS S3 vectors is a new feature within AWS S3. It's officially launched July 15th, 2025. It's a new tool launched AWS S3 in within S3 vectors. July 15th, 2025. It's launched within AWS S3. Why we need to Why we need to use AWS S3 vectors? It's a native vector storage in AWS S3 and it's a scalable and cost efficient. And we can build on S3 scalable to billions of vectors. Like it's a cost reduced, like it's a 90% it will reduce the cost. And one more main feature why we need to use AWS S3 means AWS S3 vectors is integrated with AWS AI services. Like for example, Bedrock, Knowledge Base, SageMaker, AI pipelines, Search and Rags. It's integrated a lot of AI services. And one more thing, I will simply tell the one architecture why we need to use AWS S3 vectors. Previously, July 15th, there is a no AWS S3 vectors. In that time, in which process we are using, I will tell some sample architecture. Without S3 vectors, we will we have a data in that S3 bucket, and that bucket we are embedding to the bedrock, and after that we are custom lambda service we are launching, or ETL pipeline like AWS Glue. I will explain. And after that, open search. And finally, we are using our application. This is the process we are using AWS S3 vectors before. Now, July 15th, AWS S3 launched within AWS S3 vectors launched within AWS S3. Now, the architecture after launching the AWS S3 vectors with S3 vectors, our data is stored on AWS S3 bucket. That bucket, we are embedding that whole storage of bucket data to embedding modules like Bedrock. And that data we are storing in AWS S3. vectors. And after that, we are accessing the application. Like I will explain now. See our data in AWS S3 bucket. And that bucket, we have a theoretical bucket storage that we have to convert to the number format. We are we are using that bedrock. To convert the numbers, we are using converting data to again to store the data in some way. We are using that AWS Lambda and S3 AWS Glue. And that bucket we are searching open search, like we have type and we have to get the answers, like we are using the open search. After that, we can accessing the application. This without see this AWS Lambda or ETL pipeline we are using without. Now it will be we are not using because of directly we are using the AWS S3 vectors. Like AWS S3 vectors is a like we are storing the numbers. Like see, AWS S3 vectors is a AWS S3 vectors is a cost optimization. A ready storage with native support from storage and query the data and scalable and reducing the cost up to 90%. Like we are see, suppose we have some data is there in AWS S3 vector, we can query the data using the AWS S3 vectors and scalable and reducing the cost like up, up to like 90% we can reduce the cost. Like AWS S3 vectors is the first cloud object storage vectors to delivering and pursue the build and cost optimization vector storage from AI agents, AI infra, and semantic search for your content storage on AWS S3 buckets and to reducing the cost uploading the storage on querying vectors by up to 90%. We are using this. That's why we are using this process. Like AWS S3 vectors make a cost optimization to creating a using large vector data sets to improve the memory and content of AI agents as well semantic search results of your AWS S3 data. In S3 vectors, let us you can store up to billions of vectors and that data you can search with sub-secondary queries. Like you have billions of data you have to store in AWS S3 vectors, and that vectors data you can query the data and query the data. Like now, I will explain the this architecture image. See, this is the architecture image with AWS S3 vectors. Like first is generating vector embeddings. Like that is the process one. Like if you don't know what is embeddings, like I will tell you, embeddings are a numerical represent of your data. Like if a data is there, that is a numerical represent of your data. Like LLM, like large language models, primarily understood only numbers. Like LLM only understood the numbers. Before your data, you were given to the embedding. Like before your data you are giving to the LLM, you have to convert the data to numerical format. That is a that is also called AWS S3 vectors. And those numbers we can play AWS S3 vectors. Like s- that AWS S3 vectors, we have storing some data. That data like numerical format. That numbers we can call as a DNA that codes like DNA from the it, we can call like meaning of a DNA. Now, see this data we have storing in AWS S3 bucket. That bucket we are giving the access to the bedrock. Like in bedrock only, there is a embedding modules is there. In that bedrock, entire data well taking the embedding modules, it will convert to the text. Like for example, like input, you have a documents. This is the input is documents. That documents are image or text or convert whatever happen inside. Like that data we are converting the words. You have a document. The document is the data is dog. This data we are giving to the embedding. See, embedding it will be convert to the text format, numbers format. That number is take that and it will convert them some random numbers, unique numbers. These numbers as a DNA for meaning. These numbers, ca- these numbers of documents is vector numbers. It will be storing on AWS S3 vectors. After converting the AWS embeddings or vectors, it will typically storing on database known as a AWS S3 vectors. Those embeddings are sent to the AWS S3 vectors, which as a both like your original data in AWS S3 bucket, and we have a this embeddings is a AWS vectors like these log is storing in AWS S3 bucket, and these codes will be storing in AWS S3 vectors. Like I think you have clearly understood like this one. A vectors indexing managing to store the embedding numbers in a way to take the theoretical to the search. Like AWS S3 now it's a just a jump bucket, dump bucket for these files to store understood your data as imagine. First, the data is going to embedding. Embedding is connecting the data to and storing the AWS S3 vectors. Like this is clear now. See, this part is clear. And after that, AWS S3 vectors, we have to query the data. Like vectors is you have to query the data. Like we can ask any question in AWS S3 vectors. It will give the answer like semantic search, vector indexings. AWS S3 vectors compress the query vectors against the storage vectors using the semantic search. It will return the most recent document for the user. Like if you have upload any document, it will convert the numerical format and it will store the S3 vectors, and you can ask any question. It will be get your answer. Suppose if you ask the box looking at the number code setting the say like if the open search box is there, you can ask the question like, hey, cat is a close to the dog here. You will get the answer like, yeah, it's similar to the dogs. Yeah, because of the dog codes is there. That's why. Now, say, now, no, this part is clear. Like, you can ask any questions, it will get the answer. Like, documentally, your data is there. The data will convert to the numerical format. That data will be storing in AWS S3 vectors. And after that, we can query that data, we will get the answer. For example, Now I will tell you the flow of summary. Now, still now what I have explained entirely, I will tell you summary. Flow summary was data in, convert documents or images to the AWS S3 vectors or images into the S3 vectors. And second, storage. We can save the both documents plus vectors in AWS S3 vectors. Like original data is in AWS S3 bucket and the data will be converted to the numerical format. The data is in AWS S3 vectors. And such. We can query the embeddings. Query is embeddings. Like it come the data will be get the output. Like you can whatever the document you have that document you have to query it. Now we have clearly understood why we are using the AWS S3 vectors in like this is the just theoretical format video. In next in AWS S3 vectors, I will do one project end to end. I will use AWS S3 vectors, AWS S3 bucket, and I will use Bedrock and use Lambda, and I will use API gateway to use all services. I will do one project. That project is AWS S3 rack system. We are storing some data in our rack and we can query the data through AWS API gateway. This is the part one video. I hope you have clearly understood. If you have not understood, just write the comment. I will reply within 24 hours. And next video I will upload in few days, like 2 to 3 days. I will upload the video, and you have do the project and practice. And after that, you have to delete the entire services because if you have don't deleted AWS S3 vectors, it will be not cost because it's 90% cost optimized. But Bedrock will be cost. AWS Lambda it will be cost. That's why you after doing you can delete. This is the part one video, and I will do the part two video. I will upload in 2 days. Thank you guys for joining the video and listening. And if you have any doubts, you can write the comment. If you like the content, just like. I'm expecting 100 likes on this video. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.